graduation ceremony will be taking place this Sunday, June 3rd, at the high school. Wishing the best of luck to all the graduating seniors and their future beyond Walpole High School. That's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Claire. That was great. I'm sure you have other stuff to do. You're obviously welcome to stay in there. And next up, we have a recognition. Sydney. Nancy's going to handle this one.
I have the honor of thanking Sydney. Sydney Villa has been a school committee rep from Walpole High School for, I believe it's 3 years. It's been a while, 2 years. But one of the things that we want to do, Sydney, is thank you because you have such a commitment to doing things well. You have been professional in your approach, and every time you've come, you've brought us really good information in with such pride about your high school. And for me, it's a tremendous honor knowing you since you were in kindergarten, to see the person that you've grown up and become. We just want you to know we're super proud of you. We wish you well as you move on to the University of New Hampshire, and we hope that as you expand your horizons and experience all the opportunities that are ahead of you, that you stay in touch with us because we're real proud of you. So this is for you. I guess come up there, but yeah.
Great school, too.
Exactly, and she's a great kid. She'll Thank you very, very much, though.
Congratulations, and thank you for all your help. Next item we have for new business, school nutrition department.
So we're pleased to have Mr. Frischer with us this evening, and Mike will roll out a program. He'll provide a little context of how the thought entered his mind to begin discussions with Blessed Sacrament to, well, I'll let him tell you the story. But it's a success story, and it shows great initiative. And Mike, why don't you share your plan with the community?
So about 2 months ago, I was informed that with the retirement of their chef and the ongoing costs of their food service program, Blessed Sacrament's finance director, his name is Martin Murphy, was looking for an alternative to their costly program. Soon after getting this information, Maria Hall, our food service director, and I began conversations with Blessed Sacrament to provide all food service operations for their school. After several visits to our central kitchen and Blessed Sacrament's facility, we developed a plan to provide food services for Blessed Sacrament School. So what are the details of the agreement? Walpole Public Schools will provide complete food service to Blessed Sacrament School for the 2018-2019 school year. All necessary personnel will be employees of Walpole Public Schools, and the existing employees at Blessed Sacrament will be able to interview for positions at Walpole Public Schools. All food and other similar supplies will be provided, prepared, and served by Walpole school staff. There will be at least one serve-safe qualified individual in the kitchen at Blessed Sacrament during serving hours. All kitchen equipment, including maintenance, will be the responsibility of Blessed Sacrament School. Walpole schools shall administer the program, including but not limited to the fee collections and financial accounting. Walpole schools shall be entitled to any profits related to the program. A management fee of $20,000 shall be paid to Walpole schools. Walpole schools will offer a menu to Blessed Sacrament School students that will follow closely the menu for Walpole school students. Prices are as follow. The student lunch will be $4.50, that's what their current meal is right now. Milk will be 70 cents, that's what our milk price is, and adult meals will be $6. This agreement will be in effect from September 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2019. Through this arrangement, Blessed Sacrament students will be part of the National School Lunch Program, and all meals will meet the stringent nutritional guidelines established by the federal government and supported by Massachusetts. Walpole schools will be able to utilize commodity purchasing for all Blessed Sacrament meals, which significantly reduces the cost of an average meal. Blessed Sacrament families will be able to access the monthly menu through the same online menu website that Walpole Schools utilizes. This software not only provides a nutritional breakdown of each meal, but also includes allergen alerts for all ingredients. Blessed Sacrament parents will be able to pay for meals through their My School Bucks account, and all sales will be processed through the point-of-sale system, which we call Mosaic. The preparation and delivery of all meals from the centralized kitchen will be the same for Blessed Sacrament as it is for the 6 Walpole schools that receive their meals daily. At the conclusion of the first year of service, Walpole schools and Blessed Sacrament will review the successes and the challenges of the program and determine if the service will continue. It is our expectation that based on the success we have had in Walpole over the past 6 years with our food service program, that Blessed Sacrament will enjoy the same benefits and will be able to enter into a multi-year agreement. All of the information discussed this evening will be provided to Blessed Sacrament families after tonight's school committee meeting. So it has not gone public, as you were not aware of this yet. So areas for potential growth, just want to highlight a couple things that are not part of this plan, but we'd like to see as we move forward. A breakfast program for Blessed Sacrament, a full a la carte menu, catering for all Blessed Sacrament events, and overall participation growth beyond what it is currently. They serve about 170 meals a day at Blessed Sacrament. In conclusion, both Marie and I are very excited for this unique opportunity. We are proud to offer the same services that private companies offer at a much lower cost due to our centralized kitchen model. I believe this unique model is truly a win for Walpole schools and Blessed Sacrament, and the revenue that is generated from this program will support many of our current and future educational initiatives. The Walpole School food service staff are also excited, and the union leadership have been supportive of the change and are appreciative of the new opportunities for their members. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Just before questions, I would just like to add a couple more pieces of information. Maria Hall and Mike have worked hard with the cafeteria staff on this model in the past. This isn't new territory for them. They now serve meals for the Tech Collaborative on Mansion Drive in Walpole, as well as the BICO Collaborative, which is 2 floors in the office building in front of Iorio, Rodman Rink, and soon to be a 3rd floor starting next year. So they have success, as well as the League School out on Route 1. Mike's program through Maria serves those children without a hitch. So I don't see this as having any type of negative impact on our students. And I think that it could be a win-win for not only Blessed Sacrament, but for the future fiscal stability of our program too.
Excellent. Yep. Phil?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Mr. Fisher, as we're expanding, what is the cost projected, do you think, for catering school committee meetings?
Like we could make we could make some money
a hot
on
pot
that.
or something. That would be good.
How elaborate do you want it?
Well, if we could see a couple of proposals, that would be wonderful. I'm really happy to see that are we in a monopoly now if this happens for school lunch? No, I'm in all seriousness.
In the town of Walpole?
In the town of Walpole. And that's just a great thing. I in my day job, I was just thinking about how Norwood is doing the exact opposite. They're getting out of providing school lunch for their parochial school because they don't have a school lunch program of their own. They have a vendor that they're losing money on, and so it's always nice to see Walpole being better than Norwood, obviously. But I think in a really immediate, in an interesting way, we've turned this program around, and I just want to talk about for a minute the arc of this. We were in the red, then we were in the black, then we expanded our offerings, then we're giving better benefits, and participation was up, and then we started to go to the league and to the collaborative schools. So the growth of this program that was once a drag on our budget and is now a boon to our budget now, which is now paying for some of its capital expenses out of its operating budget, I think is great. And not to mention just being a good neighbor for Blessed Sacrament, who many of their students were ours before, might become ours again after in high school. I just think it's a great thing, and it's just another piece of innovation that we have as a district, and it's good for you, Mike, to just think about that. Are you looking at other towns now? Are you going to start poaching Medfield stuff?
There is another Catholic school and 1 town away. So
all right, I like it. I like that.
We'll see.
Good stuff.
We were actually close to cutting a deal with Foxborough to share staffing.
Okay.
That would benefit us and benefit them. But they got a little cold feet in the end, so we had to back away
We're
from
the big guy
that.
on the block now. We're like McDonald's. It's like
Well, quality
Kind of.
and its
Wow,
efficiency.
size. That's
So,
great. Nice.
we had the school nutrition director of the year, so that was part of how we worked with them and let them know that it's a solid program. That speaks
Right.
volumes in itself. So,
That's wonderful.
Great.
thank you.
But I'm serious. Just a little something. You thrown out there.
I want to say something real quick too. I also wanted to say that when I first started on school committee, I agree, it was a totally different dynamic. We were talking about how to fix the program, and here we are, 6 years later, and it's just been so great to see how far it's come and all the innovation, and this town and the school committee is constantly challenging you to find new ways to do things and to do more with less. We try to stretch every penny as far as we can, and just to be able to do something like this and to, find another revenue stream. I think it's really, really innovative, and I applaud those efforts. So thank you for that. Nancy?
I also wanted to thank you for, taking the initiative. But I also think it's important to thank the staff because, like you mentioned, Maria Hall, and people get these stereotypes about a union, and good for them that they understand that they're operating in the 21st century and that they're, just because it's something different, it's not something to be afraid of. I think, so please extend that, not just to Maria, but to the entire staff. They deserve
And you
credit.
have to remember, 6 years ago, they were willing to come to the bargaining table
Exactly.
to fix the
Yep.
contract that was strapping us financially. If you look at the other towns that have privatized, most of them, the unions were not willing to come and negotiate. And they have done that, so we've upheld our end of the bargain by maintaining the system
Yep.
and the positions. They're adjusted, but they still have jobs, and they work very hard for us. They go above and beyond, every single one of them.
And
So
like
they're
Jen just
fantastic.
mentioned, we're always asking you to try to find a way to do more,
Yeah.
which means you're asking them to find a way to do more. And the fact that they're responsive to that, they deserve a lot of credit, if you ask me. I have two questions, Mike. You mentioned the prices, and at one point you said the student lunch, that's what they are paying now. Is that similar to what our students are also paying?
So
The
our high
$4.50?
school students pay $375. Our elementary students pay $350.
Okay.
So they're paying $450 over there. The $450, without getting into real specifics, the $450 that they're paying over there isn't enough to sustain their current program. So they are putting in a large subsidy to the program direct, and that's what they've been able to reduce dramatically.
Okay.
So that's the win for them and the win for us. And I said we'll revisit the whole financial thing at the end of this year, but I did not want to ever put us in a position where we could lose money. So
Good for
that
you.
the 20,000 secures us, and it helps them reduce and improve their financial picture.
That's great.
Great. And the other question is on fee collections. Sometimes, if people aren't paying their fees, you need to rely on the principals to help get that piece done. Have you talked to them about that part of it?
I haven't talked to their principal directly. Their principal is leaving. There'll be a new
Okay.
principal coming in, but I have had lengthy conversations with their finance director about how we would be pursuing past due balances and that they'd have to be supportive of us in that.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you again.
Excellent. Any other questions?
The one thing I would like to mention, though, is that the idea to reach out to them did come from the Finance Committee. We were presenting on food service to the Finance Committee, which I thought was really commendable that somebody would think like that and really just put a little bug in my ear, and then I followed up with it. But I would have not necessarily known about that if it weren't for that Finance
Right.
Committee member. And I did send a thank you to Paul as the chairman of the Finance Committee.
Yeah, it's the way things should go. We should work together collaboratively and, come up with innovative ideas, so that's great. Excellent. Next item is the first reading of revised policy JKAA.
Right, the district just completed a coordinated program review, and the state came in and made certain recommendations to our policies. One in particular, policy JKAA. So this is a first reading. I've provided a copy of the policy with the markup of what needs to change. I won't get into it. If you'd like to have the policy subcommittee, we could do a deeper dive, but it's primarily to meet civil rights requirements, and it's clerical in nature.
So, just so the public knows, it's just one small paragraph that we're talking about striking and a couple other words, and this was recommended, you said,
Yes.
by?
Department of Ed.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Any questions? Nancy?
Lynn, can you just tell us a little bit about the physical restraint policy? Like, I know I know it's a state law, I know people have to get trained in it, but in general, I would assume that it's a pretty rare occurrence where.
It is rare. We've only had one instance. We've had two instances
Okay.
with one child. It's very rare you have to restrain a student, like force them to sit in a chair while you either de-escalate the situation or seek help. Usually there's a team that is involved that's trained in this. So we have 4,200 students, give or take, across the district. We've only had really one child we've had to apply this policy to, but it's important that we have the policy in place as well as training, and then we also have a protocol where we have to inform the state of every restraint, and then they usually do a cursory inspection of what took place and why. We provided that information for the study team this past week. But it really focuses more on de-escalation skills for teachers, as opposed to restraint. In fact, we don't call it restraint training anymore. We call it safety training. And we have one of our administrators, Jen Bernard at the preschool, who's been trained in this, and one of our BCBAs, behaviorists, to train our staff. So it's a different way to think, and it's working, to work with the children before their behavior escalates to the point of needing to be physically restrained, and that usually is a result of either kicking, biting, spitting at a staff member. Very rare.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item for old business, we have Elm Street Principal Task Force.
So we're well underway for our for the search to replace the Elm Street School principal, who left to go to her hometown and to follow her dream to work in her home school district. We have met with the staff and the parents of Elm Street School, created a focus group. We have compiled and are in the process of compiling. We just finished a meeting tonight at 6 o'clock. So we'll get all that information. We're looking for characteristics, competencies of a new principal, any challenges the staff or the parents feel the new individual may experience. It's summarized. We generally find themes as you would with a qualitative analysis, and we share those themes with candidates so they're prepared to respond in interviews with their philosophy. And it also provides candidates with information about our district to determine whether or not it's a fit for them. The last thing we want is a principal to come in and after a year said, "Oh, you didn't tell me about A, B, and C." I didn't know the job entailed that. So it's transparent. Nothing's filtered, as long as they don't swear. Just kidding. And I think it supports our process. So at this point in time, we've made the announcement. We've received 30 applications. 10 are sitting principals, 6 assistant principals and other central office people, some from in-state, some from out-of-state, but predominantly Massachusetts. We've conducted the staff focus group. We've conducted a parent focus group. We've posted an online document so that if parents or staff couldn't make the specific time we were having a focus group, they could interject their opinions and their thoughts. Dr. Kenny will be chairing the interview committee. That is scheduled for June 7th. And then June 8th, we would have a selection of finalists. So the next day, we would take the scoring rubric from the interview committee and then determine, do we have 1 finalist, 2 finalists, 3 finalists? And in some cases, we've had 4. And at that point in time, we would schedule visits to the schools, their schools, half-day groups with parents or teachers and administrative school committee members. And then we would have an open forum, like a town meeting type of forum, for anyone to attend, for the parents, for the staff, and they would also meet with students. They would provide about a 20-minute monologue on their philosophies, and then it would be open up to questions. And what we look for is consistent message between the different groups. Do they respond to the staff the same way the parents and the kids? Are they consistent with their responses? At that point in time, we determine if we have a viable candidate. If we have a viable candidate, we move forward to the negotiation period with a number one candidate, extensively check references and background. And if we don't feel we have a candidate, I will report to the school committee that information, and we would begin a search for an interim principal for 1 year and redo the search, reopen the search in the fall, most likely late fall of next year. But this process has worked. We've gotten feedback from different applicants who say it's very extensive. Oh, I forgot to tell you that we also have them do a writing prompt prior to arriving for the interviews. And just after the interview, they have to do a reactionary writing sample with a scenario. They review the scenario and have to do an immediate communication to parents. And we look at writing skills, grammar, content, structure, and decision-making ability. So we feel it's extensive. I do need a school committee member. Did we decide, is the chair serving on this? Jen, are you all set for that, or are we open for discussion? Who would like to serve on this committee?
Not
it. We do have 3 parents who were selected randomly they picked the names out of a hat today. We have actually 3 teachers, 2 specialists, the preschool director, 2 middle school principals because of the transition from K to 5 into the middle schools. As I said, Dr. Kenny is chairing, so I think we have pretty good broad representation of the stakeholders. So that's my report, and I'd be open to conversation, questions, and a representative who would like to serve on the committee.
Any questions? Nancy?
You had mentioned the idea of after finalists are selected, that there's going to be a chance for parents, community members
Yes.
to meet the finalists. Do you have a rough idea of dates for that? Just
That would
so
be June 11th.
June 11th. Just so that people, if they
June
want to
11th.
make themselves available, will know that that's
Right.
the date that you're aiming for.
Yeah,
Okay.
and the site visits will be either June 12th and or June 14th, depending on how many candidates we have.
Okay, so June 11th, you're thinking is probably going to be in Walpole.
Yep.
And then
Sounds great.
later in that week would be site visits?
Yes,
Okay.
good carpool. This is all out online.
Okay.
And it's been provided to all the Elm Street parents. This
Thank you.
schedule, timeline,
So the
is called, excuse me,
Sorry, the 11th, and what was the other date?
the 12th.
Okay, and the school
And
committee
or the
representative is at all of those dates?
I would suggest that they're at a minimum of June 7th, the interviews.
Yep.
June 11th, we'll have a session with the school committee, as we always had. Sometimes we combine that with parents. And June 12th, definitely, and maybe June 14th as an alternate. We would have to have 3 candidates to go June 14th, I would think. So we'll probably do morning and afternoon on the 12th. We'll see how that works out. So it is a commitment of time.
I have a full day meeting on June 7th, and that's next week, so that's, yeah, I can't move.
Yeah, I'm
unfortunately.
fine. I would just have to figure out the 11th, but.
Bill's touching his nose, not it. I have kids, you know.
I think it would be great if you did it, Jen. I've done a whole bunch of them, and I'll be glad to be a backup.
Okay,
But
I just have to
I
make sure
done-
daycare has space on the 11th if we had an extensive
Okay.
meeting, but I
The
think I should be
11th of all the
okay.
dates isn't as pivotal as the 7th and the
Yeah,
site
those
visit.
days I'm fine with.
The 11th, I think we could
Okay.
survive.
I could probably make it happen, but without 100% certainty for that date. So yeah, excellent. All right.
Just a quick comment.
Yep.
Like I was just making an observation, right? I think that we've said this for years, right? The strength of the development of your staff. You've got your administrative staff, your administration, right? Your leadership team is been strong for years, and it's as strong today as ever, right? And a big part of that is your how robust your recruitment process is. I mean, this is what you just described to me was pretty impressive in terms of, and it pans out. It has panned out by looking at your team today, right? So just an observation. So
Thanks, Mike.
yeah.
Great. Next item on the agenda is data assessment update.
Okay, we have Dr. Kenny going to provide a data assessment update. Jean is the guru of curriculum and assessment.
This is just a sample.
Great.
I will say, Mr. Ryan, that our candidates have said that our process is the most robust that they've ever experienced.
That's awesome.
But it works.
It sure does, yeah.
We get the best people. So we met in our curriculum subcommittee on May 21st, just about 10 days or so ago, to review what we're doing within the district with respect to assessment, practice for improving progress towards the stated goals. And I'll just review some of that. In literacy at the elementary, I'll start with the elementary level. In literacy, we're looking to implement the Foundations program with the Wilson Language Corporation in kindergarten and first grade. It's a very robust program which will provide our students with significantly more opportunities and enable them to progress faster in the acquisition of sight words, which they deem trick words, and the letter-sound relationships in comparison to the current program we have. Our current program is Scott Forsman Reading Street, which is 10 years old and is not, at this point, aligned to the 2017 ELA standards. So we'll be using Foundations in conjunction with the Scott Forsman Reading Street because there are a lot of literature. There is a lot of literature that is able to be continued to be used. We're also examining what is called the Fountas and Pinnell benchmark assessment system to specifically identify exactly where students are in terms of their literacy development, and we're looking at that through K-3. We're going to continue at this point to use DIBELS, the Dynamic Indicators of Basic Early Literacy Skills, which measures very discrete skills for literacy acquisition for kindergarten all the way through grade 2. And we're going to be using the Developmental Reading Assessment, or DRA, which measures comprehension, story retelling, and in some cases written communication about what the students have read. For math for kindergarten and grade 1, we're continuing to use our district-developed assessments. You may remember that several years ago we were required to develop what were called district-developed measures, or DDMs. That was part of the educator evaluation system. So we're using very, very similarly designed assessments, but we're simply changing the name to common assessments because that's what they are. And these will also be utilized as measurements of student progress within Standard 2 of the educator evaluation model that we currently use. The Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has moved away from the term DDMs, but is including the measurement of student progress under Standard 2, which is teaching all students. For ELA and math, grades 2 through 5, we have investigated and are now pretty close to implementing a system, a web-based adaptive assessment and instructional program. I'm chuckling because the name is Freckle. It used to be called Front Row, but there was a little copyright controversy apparently with an Apple product, and what they decided to do is name it Freckle to really affirm the unique identity of every single student. No freckle, no two freckles are the same. You look as though you don't believe that, Mr. So it is, it is a student dashboard that indicates progress and also provides incentives for students to practice additionally. And the most important thing about it is that it is adaptive. And adaptive means that the assessment is provided to the students for diagnostic purposes. If the students answer many of the questions correctly, they move to a higher level, and their progress is so noted. And the practice activities and the recommendations for literacy level are based on that diagnostic assessment. If we have students who do not succeed at many of the questions, then the level of the questions gets lower until the students are able to reach a ceiling that demonstrates their capacity. And therefore, the activities, the practice, and the reading levels, the lexiles, are then identified for the teachers. The good part of this platform is that it does provide us with benchmark assessments, and it enables us to do progress monitoring periodically for every single student. So it gives us a lot of data for which we have the opportunity to examine growth, examine areas of weakness, and will then be able to present information to you on basically overall student growth. And the program actually provides what we were seeking many years ago, which is a dashboard, and it can be based on a school and or district-wide. It also provides the classroom teacher with very specific information about the students. In science K-5, we're using Mystery Science, which is another web-based program that provides a lot of assessment and then guides practice. That program is definitely inquiry-based and process-oriented. Social studies, we're working on that because, as you probably know, the comment period for the new proposed frameworks is expiring June 25th. So we are continuing to use our current assessments, but they've been interdisciplinary, aligned with our English language arts. So you see a lot more of the progress in terms of our English language arts assessment. At middle school, we're moving toward the implementation of illustrative mathematics in grades 6 through 8, and that is, as I said, a web-based open educational resource program that is aligned to the Massachusetts frameworks that will be used in conjunction with or supplemental to our big ideas, math and 6 through 8. And the benefit for this is that there are multiple assessments within it based on the concepts and the standards that our students are studying in grades 6 to 8. We have professional development scheduled for the teachers, and we have teachers who have already volunteered to do curriculum development projects this summer. And ELA for middle school is our district-developed common assessments that are also aligned with the expectations for the high school. And the teachers at the middle school developed their rubrics in collaboration with the high school teachers. They're simply modified to reflect the literature that middle school students are receiving. Just today, which is why I didn't put it or give it to Mary to put it in the handout, I met with Mimi O'Malley, our science department chairperson, and our middle school representatives, and they have recommended STEM scopes as the science program for the middle school. And one of the pieces that they really liked about it was, yes, it's all web-based. It's open education resources. You can see the type of activities that are listed across the top. But one of the pieces that I had asked them to look at when they were evaluating the 4 programs that were presented on May 7th is to look at whether, in fact, we could monitor the student's ability in math. And as you know, science in grade 8, as measured by MCAS, has not been where we wanted it to be. But looking at that little block on the lower left where it says supporting materials, it says we can generate custom assessments, create shared lesson plans, etc. Most importantly, analyze student data and access embedded professional development. So that was one of the key points for us in looking at what we wanted for a middle school science curriculum. At the high school, we're still working on our common assessments and utilizing those. We have, as you probably are aware, term assessments, mid-years, end-of-course assessments, and finals. So those are happening across all content areas and in all grade levels, including electives. So what we're going to be doing is compiling the data by department so that each department chair is able to look at, collect student data and analyze it, and then we'll be able to report out.
Excellent.
I just wanted to make a comment. That I think the foundations is great. Having a dyslexic child who's gone through the Wilson reading system, having that as a foundation in kindergarten and first grade is a great way to prepare all students and hopefully catch or prepare some kids before you need to do a lot of intervention. So.
And it's, I think it's really important to note that our teachers are all in favor of this. We presented it to the teachers. We in Walpole don't mandate the implementation of programs. We seek the input from the teachers and collaborate to make a decision. In this case, we sought written feedback from the teachers, and all of them, 99%, indicated they were favorable. And actually, I've gotten emails today. We had planned for professional development on August 27th, and several teachers have approached the principals to say, could we get started earlier than that, maybe do it over the summer? So that's how teachers are responding.
Great.
Excellent.
Questions? All set?
Jean, could you stay 1 minute? You know, Mike, you talk about stability of leadership, and, you know, Jean is a shining star when it comes to that. I don't know if you know, but Jean's been with the district for 28 years. She started as an instructional assistant for a year, then grade 3 teacher for, I think, 3 years, maybe 4. A reading specialist for 3 years, an assistant principal for another 4 years in the district, then a principal for 5 years, and now she served as assistant superintendent for 11 years. 28 years she's been impacting generations of students in our school system. She has communicated to me that she has decided to retire as of September. It'll be a great loss to our district. We will surely miss her, but she lives in town. We know where to find her. Frank, you heard that? Her husband is here. But I think it needs to be said that, you know, that Jean is a major reason that the school district is strong, solid. Her values and her ethics are impeccable. Her work ethic is beyond reproach, and I think it's infectious for all our staff to see that someone who's worked here for 28 years works harder than anyone else in the district. And, you know, she's been a trusted friend, and I'm going to miss her. I really am.
Thank you.
So, comments?
I can't.
Where do you begin?
Yeah.
I guess I would begin by saying that it's change is hard, and we wish you the best because you've given your best every single day. And I remember at one point somebody saying that it's easy to develop a work ethic when your leadership has a strong work ethic. And it's because, not because they make you work hard, but because you want to work hard together. And I think that that's a piece that you exhibit every single day. And you know, I think the hard part is, you know, your job is endless. There's no bottom to all the things that are expected of you. And I suppose a lot of people might say that that is the way it is in their job, but you care more than the average person does about getting to the bottom of every single thing. So, you know, I think that we're just really, really blessed to have had your experience and your input. And I know that there have been times where I've challenged you, and I apologize for that. But I think it's also a healthy situation where you can have differences of opinions and come back and value the relationship even more, and I do. So that's all I got for this moment.
Thank you, Nancy.
Through you, Madam Chair, Nancy's the crier on this committee, not me. I'm going to be brief. I trust that probably in September there will be a fitting celebration of your service in our district, and I'm
I've
sure.
requested not.
Okay,
Fair
fair
chance
enough.
We don't always honor requests.
So I think obviously at that celebration there will be a tremendous amount of data-driven, concrete examples of your excellence. But as I always,
Bill's been on a roll tonight.
I am on a roll tonight. You guys are stuck with me for 3 more years. I just want to. But Dr. Kenny, as I am often to remind the wider Walpole High School community, the first time I met you was on the first day of 3rd grade at the Fisher School in 1995. I didn't know, just reading your CV here, apparently I was incredibly lucky because that was the last year you were a 3rd grade teacher at the Fisher School before you went on to be a reading specialist and an assistant and finally principal of Fisher School, which, as we are all aware, is the best of our 4 elementary schools here in Walpole. It's again empirical. We'll get into that later, but I am so sad. I was so sad when I found out about this, and I profoundly believe that you are the hardest working person in this district. And as evidenced solely by your presentations to this body for their detail, and I know some of my colleagues and I don't understand portions of them, but
Why were you looking at me, Bill?
Breen isn't here.
I'm an easy target.
I think, but I think
He's
it's so important to articulate that the strength of our district is built upon the strength of our teachers, and the strength of our teachers is built in large part by the training we give them. And the most, I think, the most edifying thing you present to us year over year is the list of professional development and the way in which you aggressively just tear apart these courses and these programs and find out through your colleagues, through your network of educational professionals, what are the best tools we can give our teachers, the collaboration you do there. And I'm looking at this, again, always trying to find, I've never seen someone in my 6 years on this board talk about problems in the way you do. When you bring, in years past you've given the MCAS presentation where you, with just a zest for knowledge, just exemplifying our desire for all students to achieve excellence, which is our motto, but also just a zest to get to the bottom of why did these 7th graders get this math question wrong, and that the amount of energy and time you commit to answering questions like that, which give our students the tools to succeed, gives our teachers the tools to succeed, is really awe-inspiring. And the shoes that you have to fill, that you've given us to fill, are tremendous. But I think often of the impact you have and you've had on 2 generations of Walpole kids, and I think it just
Makes me feel really old.
Well, I think it circulates down and it moves down to the newest teacher's aide to the most senior teacher here. Just the leadership you show them, the ethics you provide to them, the tremendous amount of times you've saved us in the finance committee room with tremendous amount of data. I think is just is amazing, and I think you're the exemplar of what it means to be a teacher and a product of the Walpole Public Schools, and it's a great loss. And so I'm sure we will deal with this in much greater depth in September, I hope. But I think it's important because often your average parent knows quite well their child's third grade teacher and their child's building principal. But there are some folks at central office, like yourself, who do such yeoman's work for our students day in and day out. And I very often observe that, and thank you so much for all you've done for us.
Thank you very much.
This is painful for Jean, trust me.
Yeah.
Very painful.
Well, if
Yeah,
there's not going to be
Since
a
we're on.
celebration in
Yeah,
September.
you're not off the hook yet.
Yeah, I really want to say, as you know, again, as a parent of somebody who is in special ed, and I read a lot about dyslexia, and I'm on dyslexia chat groups in all over Massachusetts, and not many people have the very positive experience that I have had. I've had teachers and special ed teachers and all sorts of support that many people are taking their school districts to court over. And I walk into a special ed meeting and they say, well, have you thought about this? And have we done this? And I know that falls under your purview. And I think that you have trained an amazing group of special ed.
Well, I'm not solely responsible.
I
We
know,
have
but I know a lot of it-
wonderful collaborative administrators and specialists.
And that sits under you. And I've said to you before, like I feel blessed that we chose Walpole sort of somewhat randomly as a place to live, and that we were at Elm, which is the best elementary school, and that we've had absolutely fabulous support, and again it stems from the umbrella that you have provided and the people that are under your purview. So I appreciate that, and thank you.
Thank you, all of you.
Gene, you're not off the hook. And Gene, the most humble person in the world, is absolutely melting over there right now. Just let me go home, right? Yeah. So I wrote down a whole litany of things and I just said, you know what? I'm going to tell a story that I've told multiple times right here, right? My daughter, right? So my daughter's going to be an educator. She's the most enthusiastic person about it. She just graduated from UNH, which is great school, Sidney Villa, right? She's going to go for a master's year next year. And Gene has been a mentor to her since she graduated from school, and meaning probably in high school too. She would meet with Gene occasionally and just to get some coaching and so forth, right? And I can just tell you every time, and that's happened several times. She'd come and meet with Gene, typically in the summer or whatever.
Lovely girl.
And she would come home every time, right? Every time. And I've said this, but I'm going to say it again. I'd just say, hey, how'd it go today with Mrs. Kenny? And before I could even finish, she said, Dad, that woman is absolutely killing it. And I'm telling you, where she was coming from was from many angles, right? And clearly, as a human being, right, as an educator, as a professional, tremendous, just unbelievable. So I don't have anything else to say. So
Exactly.
other than I'm very happy for you.
Thank you.
Right. Well deserved.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
and I'm going to save my stuff for offline.
Thank you very much. Well, as my husband will attest, I love my job.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jean.
Could you tell?
So, that gets us to the next agenda item. It's a tough act to follow. And get my place again. Personnel update. So, it's clear that we'll have big shoes to fill in September. Dr. Kenny and I have had discussions. We've had some time to reflect before an announcement was made. And we thought about who within the district could transition to assistant superintendent position, who has worked to qualify themselves, to show interest, put in the effort to understand what curriculum instruction, grants, and leading is all about. And I think we have that person within the district that I have in mind. I'd be happy to receive input, but we have someone in district who has been a student, K-12 in Walpole. She has been a teacher in Walpole. She's been an assistant principal in Walpole, a principal in Walpole. She's gone to BC. She's got her doctorate in education. She also has a CAGS from Bridgewater State University in ed leadership. She has a master's in curriculum instruction from Leslie and a bachelor's in education. So she's shown that she communicates well with staff and with parents, and she's willing to make difficult decisions and put in the hours that it takes to be an effective school leader. So unless there are objections, I would like to transfer Dr. Bridget Goff to the assistant superintendent position. Effective in August, that will allow us time to work concurrently with Dr. Kenny for 2 months, and then Dr. Kenny lives in town and has said that she would mentor for the rest of the year. It'll give Bridget some exposure to central office. I think that'll be helpful. And she'll bring the principal, teacher perspective, student, Walpole resident, former, to the position. She will have big shoes to fill, and she'll be mentored by the best of them. So that's what that's what I'd like to do, unless I hear objections or other thoughts from the committee. We've always talked about any type of governance decisions, and I think it's worth a discussion.
I was hoping you were going to make a suggestion like that, because I think that Dr. Goff is a tremendous asset to our system. I would hate to lose her. And I think that she has, as much as I struggle with change, so I'm not ready to be talking about having somebody else sitting in that office yet. On the other hand, I think that it's somebody who has been mentored by Jean and by you. She understands the expectations, and I think it's some of those. Well, I think most of the central office jobs are somewhat thankless because people don't understand the depth of what's expected of any of the four of you upstairs. But I think that Bridget does have a sense of it, and is she excited about the opportunity?
Absolutely. She's exciting. She's chopping at the bit. She's already had conversations with Jean. As you know, that I served as her intern and mentor during her doctoral program as well as a licensure program. So she has the assistant superintendent licensure. I think she's ready. She's ready to move on from the principalship. She's been a principal for 11 years now, and in the district 26 years. So I think she's ready for another challenge, and she's excited about it.
I think we're lucky to have that opportunity.
I think it's just an example of the internal strength we have with our leadership team. And you look at different districts, and they have intergalactic search. Then they usually appoint an interim. Then they have another search, and then they usually hire from within. We're fortunate to know that the best person for this job is in the district now, and she's worked hard to become qualified. She's worked hard also to gain the respect of her peers, and that's important because now she will rank her peers, and she has to know how to handle that, and I think she will.
I just want to say that I've really enjoyed working with Bridget, and I think it's an amazing asset that she's been here so long. She's just going to bring a unique perspective to things because she's been in so many different roles, and also she's been working very closely with us on the MSBA process, and something that's a huge initiative moving forward. So, her work on that, I remember there were questions I asked over a holiday weekend, and she just dug into it and came up with this presentation that it was just amazing, the quick turnaround and giving feedback and just analyzing different districts and why they may have gotten into the process, and just spending a lot of time going above and beyond. And I think she's really we're very lucky to have her, and I think it's a great recommendation.
Okay.
Bill?
Mr. Ryan?
Okay, yeah. I mean, I totally agree. And you said earlier that one of the strengths of this administration has been development of the staff, right, the leadership team. And I mean, that's been the case for years, right? That's not a new phenomenon. That's been going on for years. And I would think that in most, like you just said, in most districts, right, you have this level of, you have change like this, right? It's potentially a vulnerability, but because of the development that's occurred here, it's an opportunity for growth for the district. You got somebody with some new ideas, right? A lot of energy, a Walpole, someone that owns the system, just like Jean has, right?
Right.
Absolutely owns the system, owns her students and the teachers, really, takes great ownership. What an opportunity and what an affirmation of investment that we've put into your, really, I think the town, right, into you, into your administration, and this is one of the dividends, is you got, look at the development, you got a rising star, right? So, I support where you're at, so.
Through you, Madam Chair, I would concur. I think when we talk about intergalactic or nationwide searches, I think the purpose of that is to find the best, and we have an exemplary district here with strength and leadership, and we're not trying to lure people here. In fact, I'm sure it's the opposite. I'm sure many of our administrators are being lured or attempted to be lured by other districts and are in high demand, as the pool, from my understanding, talking to colleagues I work with during the day who are on school committees, is tough. There's a great need for strong administrators, and I think there's something so wonderful about a professional who's the principal of a school she went to, and the level of commitment there, and of being just embedded in the fabric of our community, and which is something that some of our neighbors, like, again, not to harp on Norwood, do very well about finding people with really deep ties and understanding about what this community needs and what this community is about. And I think, we talk about the reimbursement we give for coursework, and this is the fruition of that. This is why we send people to get advanced degrees. This is why we have multiple people in a leadership capacity in central office with doctorates, is because we want them to be at the absolute forefront and top of their field. And I think getting that ed degree at BC, I'm more impressed by the Bridgewater State, but that's just my own personal biases. But I think that she has a lot of facets to offer a great strength, and not just the MSBA issue, which is going to be, I believe, for this committee, the central issue for the next year or two or three, but also just on other matters. She's begun to be, and perhaps not noticed by the wider community, a presence at town meeting with our kind of pool of experts. That links kind of associates there. It's now Dr. Kenny and Fisher. Right. There's like she's links rolling 4 or 5 deep to town meeting now, and that's a good thing. And
there's a roll tonight.
Not only that, but the finance committee. I think and we've seen a number of our administrators. I think that that's something you do well, Link, as well, is, and some of your colleagues in other districts do not, being able to say, this is a project and I'm going to give this to a subordinate. And what you're doing is, we're about lifelong learners, and we're teaching people who have doctorates who are running schools still. I mean, we have people who are at the end of their careers continuing to learn. I mean, Dr. Kenny was talking about best practices, the very forefront of professional development. So I think Bridge just has a tremendous amount to offer this district, and I think we got to keep her here at all costs. I think there's so much there, and so I think that's great. And I guess my follow-up question would be, because it seems to be a consensus, like
how can I follow that? I got nothing else to add.
No, please. Sorry.
It's quite all right. Go ahead.
What happens then?
Well, I mean, it's clear that if Bridget moves to the central office, that opens the principal and middle school position. It's just too late to do a search, and I think that if you do a search for a middle school principal as opposed to, say, a central office position, you need the parents involved, you need the teachers involved, you need the students involved to some extent. That's been an effective model for us moving forward. So I don't think it's the time to promote or appoint a permanent middle school principal at this point in time. But I do think we should consider some internal candidates for an interim position and let them prove themselves over the course of a year. And if it doesn't work out for them or for the committee, they could move back to their position and have those people who are interested in other leadership positions move behind them.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, we have an assistant principal at that school who I've thought about. He has 2 master's degrees. He's a great communicator. I think he's ready. But again, I think we need to have that discussion here to see where the committee wants to go with the principalship. But that's my opinion, that it's just too late.
Nancy?
I guess I was wondering if you felt that that Ed Connor, the assistant principal, is ready, because I see a lot of strengths that he has.
Yeah.
And I agree with you that as you get to the end of the year, it gets trickier. So I guess I'm interested in, do you have concerns, or do you feel like you have confidence that he would do a good job? Because my sense is he would do a good job.
I think whenever I make a recommendation, I don't make it in a vacuum.
Right.
And I tend to seek others' opinions who may be closer to the situation. So I've spoken with Dr. Goff, who's his principal now. I've spoken with Principal Ambush at the high school. Ed served as assistant principal at the high school for 10 years. And I spoke with Ed. And I said, Ed, are you really ready to make a commitment to this leadership team to serve as the interim principal for a year and leave the protection of a position you're very good at? And I also talked to him about middle school versus high school, and he is 100% committed to the middle school level. He has been recruited for other high school positions, and I've had conversations with him about that and with other superintendents. And I think he could have been a viable candidate in area towns, but he's chosen to stay at the middle school level. And that meant a lot to me. That was before any of this went down, because he and I talked about when Medway was open. And I said, that would be a nice principalship if that's what you want. And he said, no, I'm committed to middle school. I love it, middle school children. And it takes a special person.
It does, yep.
To deal with kids going through puberty and mixing friends. And you know, middle school is a difficult age for children to navigate and for adults to navigate with children. Maybe your parents, you know that, most of you. I know I went through it 3 times and survived. So I think Ed, he has taken on more leadership roles within the district. He does a phenomenal job at our opening day. He's a character. I mean, he has no inhibitions. He'll just get up in front of 500 people and do a dance if you ask him to, in a clown suit. I mean,
That's why he likes middle school.
He does.
He's hired.
He's a character. But you look at that side and you say, oh, is he a clown? Well, no, he's got 2 master's degrees. I mean, I went for one. I wasn't going to go through that again. You know, and one's in organizational education leadership. The other one's in education. He has a Bachelor of Arts in Spanish from St. Anselm's, UMass in Endicott. He went for his master's. He's paid his dues. He's been in the district 16 years. He was in Natick for 8 years prior to that. He went through our district. So I have no hesitation to recommend him as an interim if that's the route we want to go. And Dr. Goff doesn't have trepidations, and neither does Dr. Kenny, and neither do his colleagues.
You convinced me.
Yeah.
Me too.
I think it'd make a great interim.
Agreed.
And
So-
I think with the stability you talk about, Bridget Goff is not going to be on the moon. She's going to be
That's
down
right.
the street.
Right.
That's
And
right.
If I'm not mistaken, isn't Ed like Dr. Goff, a Bird Middle School alum as well?
I believe he is.
And that's if
Yes.
My
if memory memory serves.
I'd say it's the best middle school, though.
No, it's
Equally
not.
good.
I'm a Johnson guy, so I, in spite of their handicap early in life, they've. I'm just doing this for Nancy's reaction at this point. But if memory serves, I remember talking to Mr. Connor in high school because he got to Walpole High. He was assistant principal when I was there,
Right.
and he talked about, like, I was trying to get to Walpole. There just wasn't a space.
Yeah.
And, you know, that just kind of speaks to his character. Like, he wanted to come home. He wanted to similar to Principal Brogadier, who's going home to Newton, which
That's
is
right.
quite commendable. I think he wanted to get here, and he was waiting. He was chomping at the bit to find a space. At the time, there were some long-serving, quite distinguished assistant principals at the high school. And I mean, I kind of think back to the principal at Johnson, Wayne Kivy, with the bright red pants on the first day of school, and you need someone who's willing to do that in that special role. But I just see tonight a lot of strength. A lot of strength that we have, and some moves that will allow the people who are leaving to really continue to influence and support their successors. And I think that I can't see other districts in as strong a position as we are. This is a great position of strength, and I'm sure, just kind of poking around, that we're very lucky to
Yeah.
be in this position, to have these folks who are ready to go and who have kind of mentored each other and continued to learn. And I would love to see Ed Connor running the middle school in East Walpole.
Yeah.
But I think, to your point too, we talked about earlier in the meeting, just the process for the Elm Street principal search, and I would hate to have a parent out there, you know, in that side of town who feels, I mean, how many things are going on in the month of June
Right.
that you really can't have everybody collect their thoughts and give the input they want. And so this allows folks, by making them an interim, to really, you know, the start of the year, you know, the parents have a summer to kind of brainstorm themselves about what are they really looking for as well. And it takes a lot to, I assume he's going to apply to be the full-time principal, so he's going to have to go through the same process. And I think
He'll have to earn it.
that allows for just a lot of community and parent input in the fall.
Yeah. I mean, there's a risk taking an interim as a young school leader.
Right.
Because it could go very well, but something out of your control could go very wrong. And you could get blamed for that. And it could impact your opportunity to become a permanent principal. So there is risk for him.
Right.
And we just have to make sure that he's supported and that he doesn't fail. And he will not fail. I assure you about that.
Okay.
You know? So.
Good plan. Sounds like an excellent plan.
So the next shoe to drop, this is always a domino effect, would be the assistant principal would be vacated because Ed would be moving to the interim principal. So again, I would suggest we go with an interim assistant principal. And then if it doesn't work out for Ed, he can move back to the assistant principal, and that would be an assurance for him to take this risk. But it will also provide an opportunity for, we have about a half dozen teachers who are obtaining a master's degree and a principal licensure within the district, and it'll offer them an opportunity to get some exposure to the assistant principal job with a former assistant principal, with Ed, with Bridget, with Jean still here, and myself to help mentor them. And then they would have an opportunity to respond to the posting next year if Ed becomes the permanent principal. Then we would have a posting for a permanent AP. So it seems like two positions are kind of up in the air, but at least we have people who are stable and know the school and know the staff and know the students to hold down the fort while we have time to schedule more extensive searches for a middle school principal and for a AP if necessary.
And that's
So that would be my thought, that we start talking to our staff who within the staff, I'll post it as an interim position with the agreement that it's a one-year position, and that they could move back to teaching if they find it assistant principal isn't for them, because it is a sea change. You're going from the classroom with 20 to 30 kids in front of you to a school with 500 kids, and you're going from a lot of educating and a lot of fulfillment with aha moments when kids start to click, to dealing with mostly discipline. And not everyone has the capacity to handle that or want to handle that. The AP job, talk about thankless, that's a tough job too. You're dealing with middle school kids who don't always make great decisions, and it's tough.
I think through you, Madam Chair, it also sends a really great message to our staff, as far as morale of the professionals here. That I was just trying to think back. Now, Lee Toby was a teacher before she was a
That's right.
principal. It to me says, if you work hard, if you further your career through educational advancement, there's opportunities for you if you feel called to that that portion of that section of education. And I think that just says a lot to, if I was a 4th, 5th year teacher and I'm going to school, it says that we have confidence in the excellence of our staff, and we have confidence in the people under the central office who are kind of molding our educational leaders, and that's great to say that we can find folks within our school district who have the tools, and that we've empowered them to get the tools and learn the skills. So I think that's good for the health of the district and the
Okay, Nancy.
So just to be clear, are we talking about an interim posting, or are we
Yes.
talking about outside the district?
You do an interim first,
First, okay.
and then you'll usually, with an interim AP, if you go externally, you're usually going to get retirees
For interim,
for even an interim,
I see.
And I'd rather try to give someone within the district a shot at it first.
I just wasn't clear.
Someone who understands our school culture, has gone through all the PD that their colleagues have gone through, can help with evaluations. They know our evaluation model. So I think we'd be better served, know the kids, potentially, if it's a bird teacher. I just think that would give us a more stable leadership team at that school.
And your backup plan could always be, if you don't like the pool of candidates, then you go outside,
go
but
out.
start
Yep.
with an internal. Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Okay, looks like I have my marching orders.
sounds like a plan. Next up, school security leadership team.
Okay, I would like to thank Chief John Carmichael, Deputy Chief Chris McKenzie, Officer Matt Crown, who is the Alice, the training guru at the Walpole Police Department, Tom Hart, Tim Songen, SROs for serving on what I've developed as a school leadership team, school security leadership team. We meet at least monthly to go over our progress on adapting our security plans and improving our security in our schools. Mr. Frischia is on that team. We have David Barner representing the elementary principals, Bill Hahn representing the middle school principals, and Steve Imbush, or Lee Toby, was at the last meeting. So we had a meeting a couple of weeks ago, and the chief is recommending we migrate, and we agree, to the Department of Ed, and United States Department of Ed recommended ALICE training. It's similar to what we use now, leave, lockdown, or live, but it takes it another step because it's training that's more for a whole emergency, like a rounded emergency training. For example, it could be a bank where there's, say, an issue at a bank and we have to go into lockdown, or someone escapes from a work permit program from the prison and we have to go into lockdown. hurricane, tornado, lockdown, something like that. So this is the first step in really training our teachers in that terminology and then moving it to the student population. I think we would be remiss if we didn't start being more specific with our kids, starting at the high school level on training and terminology so that we have shared vocabulary. If there's an emergency and there's high intensity and stress on people, emotional stress, that they'll understand certain commands and understand terminology, and this Alice does that for us. So we'll be asking our teachers to take a 45-minute online training as a precursor to the school resource officers providing hands-on training at staff meetings and or curriculum meetings in the fall, September and October. Then, after our staff is familiar with the terminology, we'll roll it out to the students in individual grade at the high school assemblies conducted by our SROs, and they will develop through our media department, our TV and media department, videos on Alice training from the school in which the students reside and matriculate, and it will be training to Walpole students about Walpole school, their school, like the high school. Then they will create another age-appropriate video for the middle school children about their middle school. So the Elm will have a video about Elm, and the Johnson will have one about Johnson, what-if situations, so that the kids are more comfortable. We don't want to scare all the kids. We don't want this to seem like a police state. We don't want it to seem like a lockdown prison. It still is a school. It's an open and safe environment within certain constraints, a lot of constraints. And then we'll roll it out to the kindergarten, not the kindergarten, the 3 to 5 students, then the K to 2 students. Again, age appropriate, adjusting the message to the age group and working with the teachers and the principals to review these videos before the kids see them. So that's the plan. The teachers can train, look at the Alice video, which is nationally recognized and produced, followed by individual sessions, Q&A sessions with the SROs in the fall, then assemblies with the students, individual grades or groups of grades. So that's the training plan. As far as the equipment goes, we're improving exterior cameras this summer for better facial recognition for the door buzzers. We are conducting phase 5 of our phone upgrade system, so the teachers have 911 on their classroom, 911 on their classroom phone. It simultaneously alerts the offices. We are adding cameras at the high school in blind areas like the courtyard. So we had to expand some cameras there. We have distributed safety packs, security packs to all schools and classrooms with a list that we provided a couple of meetings ago. Are the hammers in yet, Mike?
On order.
They're on order, they're coming in. We've even improved those by adding some type of medical supplies in each pack too, and they're all red, and they'll be by the door. So they're being hung at all the schools. You'll notice them as you go through the schools. What else can I tell you? I'm looking through my notes here. Yes, we're also installing panic buttons at every school, like a bank teller will have. So they won't have to scroll and press 911. They can just reach down and hit the button, and it'll alert the local police department as opposed to going through the state police. In these type of situations, minutes are critical. 1, 2, 3 minutes sounds like nothing in a normal day, but in a school incident, a minute is critical. A second is critical. Did I miss anything, Michael or Gene?
Access control, the whole topic of detention.
Yeah. In the fall, we're looking to approach town meeting. Potentially, we have to talk to town administrator about this and the school committee about this, but the elementary schools, particularly the staff, have asked for swipe cards so that there's better security in the mornings at our building. So we'll review that, but it's very expensive. It's like $90,000 just to equip the elementary schools. And we want to make sure that it just doesn't give people a false sense of security, that it's meaningful. So we need to meet with the town administrator and the police chief and his people. Because as you know, $90,000 can buy 450 Chromebooks. And we just want to make sure it's a good investment. So that's a security update. So we're moving forward, we continue to move forward. Every school incident, law enforcement learns something new. There's a great national discourse now on school security. So we will be adapting as those wishing to do harm are adapting.
We just thought it was important to update the public. You know, we had a agenda item a few meetings ago, and in the interim, we've had meetings with the police, and we continue to talk about this subject, but just wanted to periodically report out to the community in terms of our efforts. So that was what the goal was here with this.
Right.
Nancy?
A couple of questions have come up since that meeting that we had here. You talked about training the high school kids.
Yep.
Do you have a round number of how many trainings high school kids will probably experience
I
next
would
year?
say 2 to 4
Okay.
at the beginning of the year. So it will either be every grade level in an assembly or 2 grades per assembly. The chief would like to do 1 per grade.
Yep.
But I don't know if we can fit that within the schedule in September, and we need to get it done in the fall.
Okay.
And then there'll most likely be a follow-up in the winter, after the holiday break.
Makes sense. Makes a lot
Yeah.
of sense.
Yeah,
To
but
do
they'll
it
be the first
multiple
school
times. Yep.
that, because they'll probably be the most receptive, and they're really calling for it.
Yep.
One thing I didn't mention, I'm also forming a school security advisory committee to the superintendent, and I'll be asking for a teacher representative from each school
Good.
that I will provide these updates to probably every 3 months, get their feedback. There's also already a committee formed at the high school of 6 people, so they're going above and beyond the 1. And the teachers are volunteering for this. It's important to them.
Yep. The other thing that I've heard about, and I don't know if it's specific to Old Post Road
Yeah.
or whether it could be the case with other elementaries, but the teachers need to go out in the hallway to lock their doors.
Mhm.
And if they're near the front office, or they're near the main entrance, they feel extra vulnerable. Whether, and you know, these are parents saying,
Okay.
it's I believe maybe a first grade or a second grade class that is like near the front door, straight
Okay.
out from the front door. And you can't teach the kids, well, if there's an emergency, you're going to be in charge of this and you're going to be in charge of that, because they're little.
Right.
So the question is there something that we can do? And when we changed the locks at Byrd, I wondered if it's the same thing. Like, do they have to go out in the hallway to be able to lock their door, or is there something that we can do?
I'm going to leave that up to the expertise of Mr. Frischer to talk about nuts and bolts
Yep.
and the locks.
And it doesn't have to
But
be
I-
right this minute. I'm just saying, like, that's
Well, I'd
something
like
that
to hear
needs to
that
get looked
answer too,
into.
quite frankly. But I think the training will be expanded so that not only will children be trained in their home classroom, but we will start doing training when they're in the cafeteria. We've started some when the kids are at recess, some training, what happens when the kids are at recess, like a reverse evacuation.
Yep.
Like if there's a threat out in the playground, we have a reverse evacuation. So that is a consideration, right? So what happens if teachers can't get out into the hallway to lock those doors? You know, are they locked when they come in the morning, and all they have to do is shut the door? You know, so Mike, I'll let you.
That's part of the training. It would be to lock the doors, because you're gonna find those type of locks in most of our schools, that you're not able to lock them from the inside, and that's been a problem in some of the incidents around the country. So the training would be, keep your door locked, keep it open. If you need to, you can just shut it if the door is locked. You may have to do things like open the door when a student comes back from the bathroom. You may have to get used to those type of things, but you don't want to be in a situation where you have to go out, especially near a main entrance, go out in the hallway to lock the door. That's just not acceptable. But that's something that the Alice training would reinforce, so that people are thinking along those lines. What can I do preventatively with the equipment that we have? Because we can't go and change all the door locks in every building. It just wouldn't be within our means.
Right.
I think the conversation is just important so that the community and the teachers know that
That's
we're
right.
aware of that as a potential problem.
And there should be a protocol. I mean, it could be the first thing the custodian does when he comes in the morning, or the night custodian. Every time he cleans a room, he locks the door behind him. So a teacher has to either unlock the door to get in and relock it, or clean the building, leave the doors open, so when the teachers come in, they know that door's locked at all time. But they have to carry a key with them. So it's like adapt and overcome.
And what you're saying is you would tell them not to shut the door during the day, to leave it ajar,
Yeah,
so
I mean,
that...
either way, you know, if you
Okay.
can make it work in your style of teaching, that you have the door closed and locked, and you're okay with just popping it open when the student comes back, that works, then that's okay. But for some people, that's too disruptive. So lock it and leave it open. and
Okay.
that would be the way of getting around, going out in the hallway.
Thank you.
It's these type of scenarios that we have to talk about.
Yep.
You know, in the law enforcement, they call them tabletop sessions, where you get in a room and you throw all the ideas out. What if? I've heard about this, I heard about that, I was reading that report. What do we do in this situation? So you really have to look at everything.
Next up, we have subcommittee reports, curriculum subcommittee meeting.
Yes.
You wanna-
Sure, yeah. I was there. A lot of the things that Dr. Kenny covered with the curriculum updates were things that we talked about at that meeting.
okay.
We also talked a little bit about professional development.
Excellent.
And I would just add that what we're trying to do is we're trying to get information to come to the school committee in addition to MCAS and SATs and AP reports, so that we can understand student progress. So, you know, a lot of the things that Dr. Kenny mentioned tonight are methods that will help us. The thing that came up at the subcommittee meeting is that, or at least I took away, we should be paying much more attention to school improvement plans, because that's where the goals are. Because what we're looking for is, what are the goals? How are we doing against those goals? And do we need to make adjustments, whether it's in professional development or funding in the following year or things like that? So we're looking for ways to get
Sure.
information about student achievement to the school committee meetings.
Yep. Yep.
Great. Next up, we have citizens' comments, and since there are no citizens, we'll go to approval of warrants, donations, and minutes.
Through you, Madam Chair, I just want to point out that this is the end of our 3-year term, you and I. It's been a wild ride, 6 years for both of us. You 6 consecutive years. I'm the Grover Cleveland of the school committee. I did 3, and there was an interim in between. I think that makes Pat Shield Chester A. Arthur, but that's another story altogether. I just wanted to articulate
The best of Bill tonight.
Yeah.
Somebody record this and
It is the best.
Bill's retirement party.
He's here all week.
No, I-
Tip your bartender and your
As we end,
waitresses.
I just want to thank you for your leadership of this committee over the last year. It's been great. We'll see what happens on Saturday. I always think our term ends on Turco Field on Sunday afternoon, but at graduation. But just wanted to express gratitude for being able to serve with you guys and get you laughing on a Thursday night. So that's all I got.
Thank you.
That is a good reminder to the community. Graduation is this Sunday,
Sunday.
at 1 o'clock. Turco Field.
Excellent. All right, approval of warrants, donations, and minutes. Warrants?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve the payroll warrant from May 17th, warrant number S846A, for the amount listed in your packet.
Second?
It's been a long night. A motion by Mrs. Sirak, second by Mr. Buckley. All those in favor? Opposed, abstained, 500.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the accounts payable warrants from May 24th and May 31st, warrant number 21804 and warrant number 218048 for the amounts listed in your packets.
Second. I do need to clarify, 218047?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Thank you.
Make sure to get that right. So we had motion by Mrs. Sarek, second by Mr. Buckley. All those in favor? Opposed, abstained, 500. Someone want to take donations?
Sure. I'd like to make a motion to, let's see, we got a donation, system-wide donation to Walpole Cooperative Bank, chairs for retirees in the amount of $2,304. Another system-wide donation to Dedham Savings Bank, chairs for retirees for $500. A third system-wide donation, the Bay State Federal Savings Charitable Foundation, chairs for retirees, $350. And then for Elm Street School, from the PAC, this is an extensive one here, funds raised at annual silent auction for multiple items including communication radios, iPads for technology coaches, FM systems for classrooms, folding tables, sound system for assemblies and music events, and mats for main entrance, bus entrance, and recess entrance. Wow, $7,024.
Excellent.
Another donation for Elm Street School from the PAC, fitness assembly prizes, $202. And lastly, for Elm Street School, Fisher School, Old Post Road, from Bay State Textiles, recycling donation in the amount of $135. So,
Second.
Motion by Mr. Ryan, second by Mrs. Sarek. All those in favor? Opposed, abstained, 500.
Just a note about that Bay State Textiles. They donate because citizens contribute textiles to the donation bins at each school. And this year alone, working with the students and parents, we have removed 22,000 pounds from the Walpole trash stream that residents would have had to pay dumping fees for 22,000 more pounds. That's significant.
It's a great savings, yeah. Fantastic.
Thank the
Good work,
students for
everybody.
that.
And those bins are outside of the school. You can just
Yep.
drop them there, so. Great. Next up, minutes. Someone want to grab those?
Sure, I'll go with those two. Motion to approve regular school committee meeting minutes from May 17th, as listed in the packet.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Ryan, second by Mr. Buckley. All those in favor? Opposed, abstained, 500.
And make a motion to approve curriculum subcommittee meeting minutes from May 21st, as listed in the packet.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Ryan, second by Mr. Buckley. All those in favor? Opposed, abstained, 500. I believe that's it.
Where's Mark when you need him?
I was gonna say. Somebody else like to
Everybody has a role.
take that one? Motion to adjourn. Excellent.
Second.
All right, motion by Mrs. Gallivan, second by Mr. Ryan. All those in favor? Opposed, abstained, 500. Thank you.